thing.
Okay.
Good.
All right, everybody, it is Address the Sess. This is supposed to be our special post-E3 show to talk about sort of what I saw there, what your concerns were. But then Microsoft decided to go make everything topsy-turvy today. We're going to do something special here at the top of the show. We are joined by the man who broke the story earlier today about the changes to Microsoft's policy, Patrick Klepek, my dear friend, current colleague and former coworker. Thank you for a little bit of your time, Patrick.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's been a crazy day. I was telling you, up at the top of the hour that I didn't walk into work today thinking this is what I was going to be working on. I mean, when you do reporting, Adam, I'm sure you hear all sorts of things that you can't talk about. You hear all sorts of scuttlebutt. You hear all sorts of half-truths and whispers in the wind. When I heard about this morning from a source that I trusted really deeply, I spent the rest of the day trying to nail it down, and then fortunately managed to feel comfortable going live with that, because what you do when you're trying to run a story like this is it's not, even if I know it's true, I need to make sure that the sources are comfortable with the information that's going out. Sources don't want things tracked back to them, so that's a lot of the times why you're getting multiple sources is not purely so that you can confirm that the information is true. It is kind of so that people's butts can be covered if people try to figure out where it came from in the first place.
Now, did you feel that the story was still fluid during the day, that even though you had gotten a sense that this was going to happen earlier this morning, that Microsoft could still be making decisions up until that last moment?
My understanding of how it worked out was that Microsoft informed a number of key partners in the morning. That would be no surprise for how they're going to roll out some really big policy changes. But the fact that certain members were informed this morning suggests that this is a pretty recent change. I don't think Microsoft would have spent a whole week at E3 defending policies that it was going to change unless they had some sort of debrief or collective meeting where they looked at where the coverage was, where the narrative was. Maybe there were pre-order numbers that they weren't happy with, but they realized they needed to change the conversation, and in order to change the conversation, they needed to do it in a big, drastic way. And I think they accomplished that. Who knows what this means a week from now at this point, because this is already so crazy. But they certainly have people thinking about the Xbox One in a different light.
Now, did you get any sense? I know you did had a quick interview with somebody from Microsoft just recently. I didn't know if there was anything more enlightening there, or if you have any sense how a lot of the partners, namely, like say a Ubisoft or an EA, is feeling about this change.
It's pretty unclear right now. I talked to Mark Whitten, who's one of one of the execs on the Xbox team. Not a whole lot of clarity there. They're just kind of getting out there. I only had 5 minutes, so it wasn't exactly an in-depth conversation.
Hey, at least you probably got an interview with Microsoft.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you and me both. I think one of my favorite response was I asked, GameStop's stock price is up 6% on a result of this news. Like, what do you think that means? And there was just kind of like a long pause. And he's like, "Don't come to me for stock advice." But I think at the end of this, GameStop is one of the real winners. Their monetary, like what they use to make the most money, that system staying in place. And I think all of the criticism of Microsoft has been absolutely deserved. I think the way they've rolled this out, the way they've communicated any sort of advantages of their policies has been disastrous. What's sort of tragic, in if you think about the long tail of digital rights and what consumers get with digital rights, they were on some level trying to implement some interesting progressive policies like family sharing and lending that's all, like, those policies were very vague. It wasn't really clear what all that was going to be. So it made sense that people were upset about it. But those were really interesting ideas, especially if you think about it right now. There's nothing legally where consumers are protected and should have any rights over digital goods. So it felt like maybe we were about to have a conversation about that. And right now it seems like a lot of that has been tabled. And that's unfortunate. But, the reality is that Sony, dug the knife in, and Microsoft responded, and consumers come out winners, at least in the short term, by being able to have the rights to the physical goods that they had before.
Wasn't there a rumor that like Steam was thinking about rolling out lending soon? Like someone dug into the source code or whatever and saw something like that?
There's a little bit of that. Yeah, there's a little bit of that stuff out there. It wouldn't surprise me if Valve was thinking about that. They're a pretty progressive company that doesn't have to answer to shareholders, so they can be a little more experimental. And I do believe, I can't say this with 100% certainty, but my understanding is that in Europe, the way the legalities of your rights over digital copies, digital ownership is handled differently over there. So this may actually be a thing that, as a result of certain regions requiring certain things, that other regions perhaps get rights just as a result of wanting to kind of make that uniform.
Yeah, I mean, I think this really is a case where, A, the console was more designed for 5 years from now and not for the realities that we're under. And also, the internet is global, but laws aren't. There's also some catch-up that's going to have to happen there. Hey, Patrick, I know you got to go. I want to thank you so much for stopping in. Congratulations on the story. I know you're also about to endure a big move. So the idea that you juggle both of these today, I tip my hat.
It's been a wild ride, but yeah, it was a pleasure to come on, and I don't know, maybe next time we can do this for more than 5 minutes.
All right, you got it, man. Yeah, let me know when you're breaking the story, like a week ahead of time. All right. Thank you very much, Patrick.
Thanks, Patrick.
All right, Nick, let's bring some people in. Hello, everybody. It's Address to Sess. If you haven't been following me on Twitter in the past half hour, I managed to really electrocute myself while trying to move my laptop over here. So if I'm a little flush in the face and slightly kind of like, it's because I thought I was about to die all of 20 minutes ago. But that would not stop me from making sure that this Address to Sess was going to happen, because last week was an amazing week. And obviously, the events of today are kind of without... I thought something like this was coming. I had no idea it would happen this soon. Microsoft is a very, very big company, and that usually means that you don't move on a dime, and somehow it would appear that they have. Nicholas, let's bring some people in and
Cool.
see what people's thoughts are.
Awesome. Let's talk to AJ Janowski here.
All right. Hey,
Hi,
AJ.
AJ.
Hey, AJ. Uh-oh.
Is he frozen? Oh, there we go.
There you are. AJ, let's first talk about today's news. I don't know how you stood on Microsoft before today, but has the events of today changed your mind in any way?
No, not at all. I think that their message should have been this from the beginning. I think that you know, I've always, like, this past generation, I was Xbox 360 the entire time. I loved it. I got a just bought a PlayStation a couple of years ago, and I still like it, but I always played 360 more, and I just felt like they betrayed me a little bit, and I'm sure a lot of gamers would agree with that. And just I still feel like they messed it up too much, and that should have been what it was from the beginning.
I mean, so you're still willing to stay with Sony on this? Yeah,
I'm still staying with Sony. And the other thing too is that they haven't said anything about, you know, if they're going to change their policies on indie developers as well too. That's the other thing. That's a big thing for me.
That is, and it's interesting. The indie stuff, there's both the material effect, you know, because the availability of indie games on the Microsoft console, but there's also the philosophical effect. I mean, I think a lot of what we saw Microsoft do from the moment they revealed the Xbox One was the sense that they were just speaking from a bubble, and that they had absolutely no true awareness of what the market was like, what people were interested in, and the affection that we have to indie games, and the idea of embracing it is somehow more democratic. It looks egalitarian. It's true. We have yet to hear anything on the indie games, despite them saying that they're supporting them. There's very little to demonstrate how that is happening.
We already had on Xbox 360. I don't know. I liked the Sony's presentation much better about indie games. Like, it just made me feel a lot better.
No, and they really are embracing it. I do worry that sometimes they're embracing it too much. You and I, and probably everyone who's in this chat, we love the indie games, but on a mass market level, they're going to also lean on those AAAs, those blockbusters, and those things as well, to get them in the fold and hopefully discover the indie games after that. All right, well, AJ, you hang around. Let's keep your mic on so we can get some conversation going, but let's bring someone else in, Nick.
Cool. Let's bring in Phil.
Phil. There you are, Phil. Hello, Phil. Phil.
You are muted.
And guys, sorry about that.
Oh, Phil, we saw you last week, last time, didn't we?
A little something about a little.
Yeah, you were really angry about Microsoft, if memory serves me right.
And I was angry. I was more just like confused with what their decisions were being on how to handle the whole DRM, game sharing, all that kind of stuff. And I just found it was sort of a little, we don't know how to do this new business, so we're just going to throw a bunch of ideas out there. So the news that comes out today, I like it. It says to me at least now at some point down the line, I'm going to be buying an Xbox One, I think. But right at launch, that's not happening. I actually went out 2 or 3 days ago and bought all the parts with the intent of building a brand new PC. Because even though Sony had gone and done their presentation, which I thought was great and everything, I just had too many reasons to be tempted by the PC. I had a really big Steam library. I had a bunch of DRM-free games on good old games and a bunch of other stuff that was just saying to me, no, I want to go PC. I'm fine with the whole fact that I need to kind of upgrade it continuously to some degree. And I just thought that was a little bit more of a practical investment in the long run.
I mean, I see where you're coming from, because obviously there was a great story that came out of the Sony press conference, but as I took more steps back, I was more frustrated that both Microsoft and Sony, they showed off exclusive games, but they didn't really show off games that screamed, hey, we're doing something new, we're doing something different. I saw those games coming from Ubisoft and actually from EA. You know, the whole idea of the seamless transition from multiplayer to non-multiplayer. The majority, excuse me, guys, I'm still trying to recover from E3. The majority of those games, especially the Ubisoft ones, are available on the PC. And I was thinking that if you have the ability to play them on PC, why not just do that for the time being, and then let the case be made for one or both of the consoles in the next year? I really felt that had Microsoft shown Halo that took advantage of the new things they're trying to do with it, or that Sony showed kind of a new piece of IP, because that's what they're so good with, that took advantage of what they're going to do with the cloud. They both played so soft on how that really is going to impact the game and what that opens up to game designers. I was a little bit surprised and quite disappointed from both of them in that regard.
That actually leads nicely into a question we got on Google Plus from Keenan Lonel. He says, is this news from Microsoft really going to be beneficial in the long run? Are people celebrating a victory which will cripple the advance of gaming? I'm glad Microsoft listens to its fans, but it seems like next gen is just this gen with new boxes now.
I think there is a case for that. Let's be clear again. Microsoft engaged in one of the worst messaging, marketing appeals to the consumer I have ever seen. It's not just I mean, I was thinking about how close this was to the new Coke from back in the 80s. How like it's just you had this absolute myopia to where people's taste and interest were, and it was just kind of, you know, hey, we're going to do this thing, and they never tried to show benefits to doing. They just presented all of the encumbrances. What has happened with this is we no longer have the family plan, which is pretty cool. Looks like that there will still be some degree of having access to your games from a different Xbox as long as the game is bought digitally. I don't know how much this has crimped it, but I don't think that whatever the Xbox One is supposed to do was going to really make itself apparent until 5 years down the line. At the same time, they could have played that futurist thing there. They could have almost found a way to excuse the DRM by showing such cool things that they wanted to do, but it would require you to do this. That's not how they did it. It was just kind of just doublespeak and talking around issues that, you know, to an audience that is smart and educated. I don't know how much we've necessarily lost, but I think that they did actually think that there were some cool things they could do with the box. I can't tell if they're necessarily not going to become available or not. I am a little worried about a day one patch. I think anyone who bought a Wii U knows that day one patches for consoles should give everybody a slight pause. Right. But I thing is that they had to do it. This was essential. I mean, they must have. I agree with Pat, but Klepek, I think they must have looked at some pre-order numbers and realized that the internet was actually what was reflected on the internet was also being reflected in the pocketbooks of people out there, and they were making a decision to go with Sony. So anyway, Nick, let's bring someone else in here. And
totally. I'm gonna bring in Connor Cameron.
Connor.
Hey,
how are you doing? So was that a big announcement for you today? Was that, you know, do you feel that your pitchfork and torch outside of the castle Microsoft made a difference?
I'm still stuck on the PS4, but for people that really wanted to get the Xbox, then yeah, it's great for the people that wanted to get one. I still feel it's a bit too little too late, you know?
Yeah. No, I mean, it is, I mean, This is what should have been said at E3. I mean, it is.
Yes,
They had all that audience watching at E3. They don't have them now. Hey, I was wondering, what was your takeaway from E3, or did you have any questions about stuff that was going on there?
Not really. I was really hyped for Kingdom Hearts 3, as you probably know.
Yeah.
Destiny was pretty good, and the Division looked really good. So there were some really good games, but some of them didn't really look next gen, you know.
Yeah, I mean, you know what the thing is? I believe one of my colleagues, I think it was Arthur Geese over at Polygon, pointed it out. The stuff I saw, a lot of it looked next gen in terms of visuals.
Yeah.
It's very hard to sometimes convey that. I mean, it's not that easy to get like full 1080p for video on YouTube and stuff like that. The vision was eye-bleeding in how good it looked. I still think what I was impressed with was how a game like that plays, where you might be playing with your friends and somehow it's brought in for some PvP, that you're not seeing these clear definition between a single player, a multiplayer, a co-op, or something else, and it really becomes kind of the game. You're buying the world and you're going into it. That's the stuff I find really neat, and that might be taking advantage of the cloud. That might be where the tech of these new consoles really comes into play.
Yeah, I agree.
Should we bring in another new person?
Yeah, why not?
Cool.
Well, guys, feel free to jump in here and stuff like that. There might, if somebody's like really excited now about the Xbox One, please let yourself be known.
If I can just throw something out there, you had brought up the comment about how all the new things that the Xbox One was going to be doing with the whole DRM plans and the cloud and all that stuff. I think one thing I'm disappointed about is now that whole thing of how the potential of what game sharing was supposed to be, how you were potentially going to have these programs where either you could just digitally transfer the license to a friend of yours, or just like link up with someone and say, hey, this is a person that's a friend of mine, they've been in my friends list for over a couple of months now, I would like to pay a small fee or not pay a fee, whatever have you, and let them play this game with me without them having to walk to a store, buy the $60 disc, and play it with me.
I know. I mean, but I think the thing is, one required the other. I think of the lending of the family plan, that was going to require that DRM check-in. Like that, one begat the other, and by giving up on what clearly was the bigger issue for everybody, that did have to relinquish some of these other things. I don't know the technical of it well enough to know if somehow it could be implemented down the line. But if you consider how big a company Microsoft is and how large a network Live is, I cannot see a very in the near future some way to implement a two-tiered plan where you're willing to do the DRM check for some other benefits. I just don't know if the system can actually handle that. They clearly made a pretty big call that here's what's so frustrating. Microsoft should have made this family thing a selling point. It's like there were some cool things there that if they presented it as cool, some of the more obnoxious things might have gone down a little bit easier. But yeah, it definitely looks like that, and it makes sense to me that by not having, the 24-hour check-in, that there are going to be some facets that just are going to have to go, because I think there are some legitimate piracy and those types of concerns that, I think a company of that nature is entitled to.
Right. Here's Tom.
Right.
Tom, how are you?
Yeah. All right, good. I had a question for you. I was actually thinking, do you think if Microsoft would have kept the same, but also at the same time would have been better with their PR? Like, for example, or the Val on Twitter and stuff, who's head of the Xbox Live team, or one of the head guys, on at least Jive Bomb's after live show after E3, really explained how the cloud worked, I thought, better than anybody else at that point from Microsoft had, with what they would be able to do with it, what it meant, like dedicated servers that Microsoft would take care of that stuff, and then also kind of on some of the other things.
I agree completely, and I think you've really hit on this wholesale misunderstanding on Microsoft's part, I think on Sony's part, but to a lesser extent, of who was paying attention that day. It's people who actually do understand these concepts, and when they proposed something that sounds almost unbelievable, or like, a concept that's like, okay, how are they going to do that? And they go like, and it's the cloud. it's like it's a bluff, that it's a pivot, something like that. That they could have gotten into that nitty gritty, as you said, like that was on the Bombcast. It starts to sound interesting. You start to hear the potential and what you can design for it. I think once again, yeah, they completely lost that opportunity. And once again, they should not have waited for E3. That should have been part of the announcement. Gotten the nitty gritty. I don't know if that would have made some of the new policies they were trying to implement go down easily, but at least it would have made sense and that it wasn't just a massive imposition on the consumer.
Yeah, they could have said something like during their announcement press conference or the E3 press conference. Either one, they just completely ignored it. Like, I don't know why they never said anything about it.
And then doesn't it become more conspicuous? Like there must be something really bad that has to be hidden. If there's suddenly, you know, hey, we're not going to even pretend that there's an elephant in the room. You know, it's like,
yeah.
You are smart people. And I think that's another thing. I think everyone felt a little bit insulted that they were being sort of treated as a bunch of idiots. Like we were supposed to just get up there and Pavlovianly just, you know, clap your hands because, you know, a Halo trailer that is completely pre-rendered was being shown. I guess maybe that was in engine. I should correct myself. Cannot remember. So,
but wasn't it the statement of if you want backwards compatibility, you're thinking backwards that kind of set off the domino effect?
And the whole thing about the nuclear submarine and the 360. I mean, God.
It was like a Sarah Palin-esque gap almost.
Well, I mean, it does remind me. I think it was Kaz back at the launch of the PS3 because of a lawsuit. They had to take the Rumble out of the controller, and they're trying to say that Rumble is so last gen. I mean, it's just like, come on. I mean, that's the thing, is that there is a savviness to the game consumer out there. Yeah, I mean, Don Matrick, who tends to come across much better than he did that week, was just gaffing and gaffing and gaffing. And it really was something of a shock to me. But yeah, they just could not seem to put the right face on the image. And I don't know if this is too much too late, but I think that, well, like I said before, they had to make this change.
It's weird, too, hearing them talk about it and not totally admit what people wanted and why they changed it. Like Mark Whitten said to Kotaku, what we heard is people still want the familiarity of a disc. I don't think this is really about the familiarity of a disc. I don't think that was the message coming from their audience.
Not for me.
The familiarity of a disc. Like,
a little condescending, right?
I mean, it's all, yeah. I mean, it really, that is almost like saying, like, the touch of a woman or that kind of nonsense.
Sure,
a bad dime store novel or something like that. No, I mean, the thing is, people were upset because they were being presented with a set of burdens that didn't seem to offset what was being provided. I mean, the ball was in their court to fix this entire thing. Also, looking for someone who's more excited about Sony after what they saw, not pertaining to price, sort of what they saw at that presentation that's gotten them particularly excited about that console, because obviously we're sitting here, it's almost like a wake for Microsoft and the Xbox, but we don't want to ignore all the other stuff that happened. But do you want to pull someone in, Nick?
Yeah, we've got a Jarrett Humphreys here.
Oh, guys, I'm so sorry. I still have this tickle in my throat. I did catch a nerd flu from E3 slowly.
I mean, speaking of that, you guys did an awesome job at E3. I kind of had that void in my stomach from the channel that shall not be named.
Are you mean the thing that was before the Esquire channel?
Yes.
Yeah.
And you guys really filled that void, and y'all did a great job. And,
thank you very much, man. And there was a handful of people that worked so hard behind the camera.
Oh, no. Everybody at Rev3 Games, excellent job. I mean, and you could tell you were just exhausted at y'all's wrap-up. But, yeah, ever since the Xbox One reveal, I have been sitting here thinking, or wishful thinking, that surely Xbox is going to be pulling this DRM and you can't trade used games, pulling that back, and because that was really, really bad. Yeah. And I mean, finally, I woke up today and here it is. And,
were you not going to buy Microsoft because of that, or buy the Xbox One because of it?
No, I've been looking at all the features that the Xbox One has, and I've already decided, I'm going to get that. Definitely not pre-ordering it, like you've said. They're telling stories. We can't see it, we can't put our hands on it. But yeah, I've already decided I was going to get the Xbox One. I think fully feature-wise, they're going to have more things than the PlayStation 4 to me.
I have a funny feeling about that too. It might only be because be it a good feature or a bad feature, they have been a little bit more forthright about specifics, whereas I find Sony, outside of what's under the hood of it, are still really holding back. Like, everything about Gaikai is still unclear. Yes, there's going to be streaming, but I need to get a better sense of how you're streaming a high-quality PS3 game. I mean, that's... once again, I do not profess to have the best technical knowledge. That's a fair amount of broadband service I think you would need to be able to play something like that. And I would still think it would be precluding multiplayer, or at least quality multiplayer.
Well, I think the Xbox One cloud technology, I think that's going to be a huge leap. I mean, if it's generating lighting effects or how an AI is going to act before you enter the door into a room, I think that's going to be awesome.
I mean, that maybe it does something also in terms of multiplayer. I mean, once again, they're still using a lot of that cloud as kind of like this fix-all for all things you've never liked in a game before.
Right.
I mean, if they could just get a little bit more specific. That's why I'm saying don't pre-order now, because there's just not enough clear information out there other than contempt for Microsoft or adulation for Sony. That's really driving the decision.
That's what's been bothering me, is just everybody on the internet just already banging the gavel like, as soon as Sony's press conference was over, that's it. Sony won. It's over. I'm going to go and pre-order one today.
Exactly. I mean, imagine if this was a political race.
Right.
And you were making the call, say before someone does their little talk about the 47%. I mean, it's like I think there's just an issue I have with pre-ordering, because you should, just like voting, make that decision pretty much at the last minute. So
and it's like today Microsoft came out and they came out with them saying, they were going to pull that DRM out. They're not going to use that. And at the same time today, nobody's really talked about it. They've more been talking about Microsoft doing that, but the PlayStation 4 breaking, or PlayStation 3 breaking firmware update today. Completely breaking consoles.
And I think that's my one thing when I stand back, is that when it comes to networking things, I tend to just kind of default to Microsoft because they have demonstrated with Live.
Right.
They're so strong. And Sony has made huge improvements on the PSN. In terms of my narrative in my head, that's still an area that they're not all that 100%. They've shown themselves to be somewhat insecure. I do think that bringing in someone like Mark Cerny and having a lot of people from a mix of the teams. I always felt that a lot of the networking stuff was hurt because of some of the Japanese programmers, where there is a different attitude towards stuff like that over there. So I mean, once again, I just wish everyone was a little bit more forthright about how these things are going to work and how they're just going to enhance game design.
Ever since Sony got hacked and you were unable to play your console for 2 months. They've really been working very hard to gain everybody's trust back. And
and the fact is, because PlayStation Plus will now be required to play multiplayer.
Well, see, that's the thing. Is a lot of people are saying that PlayStation 4 is going to be $100 cheaper, but it doesn't come with the camera, and then you're also going to have to pay for PlayStation Plus to play multiplaire. Which is essentially Xbox Live. And that kind of was under the radar slip,
And props to Sony for being that good. Yeah. They delivered the surprises. I turned into a little kid. I was like, oh, look, console war. Even though I hate indulging in that, I couldn't help it but be seduced by that. And in doing that, they were able, I caught that one slide about PlayStation Plus. And it's like, oh, hold on, this is a little different. I think if Microsoft wants to do a really smart move and deal with the fact that they currently look like they're having $100 more for their system, they should offer like a year free of Xbox Live, make Xbox Live Gold free, period. The other thing is, and this is another thing that's just kind of me, is they're already demonstrating that they can sell subsidized models of the Xbox 360 because they forced you to get into a contract for Xbox Live.
Right.
Why they didn't use that to show a lower price point?
I'm completely frustrated with Microsoft's marketing through this whole thing. I mean, with the Xbox One reveal, I don't know who thought it was going to be a great idea to just say TV over and over again, and they made the whole conference based on TV.
It's very similar to what I thought Sony did with the PlayStation 3. The kind of hubris and insular thinking you get by being successful in one generation. They tend to walk out on stage with this level of arrogance and just like, you're going to love anything. Look, I'm going to poop on this table, but you're going to love it. And you know what? Generation to generation, they bite you in the butt. And yes. Nick, what's going on out there? Do you have any questions as we bring some guys in?
Let's see here. Nick Kowalczyk, I think is how you pronounce that, says, What about the cloud computing now that the console doesn't have to be connected all the time? Look at Turn 10 and Forza 5 that are being built around it. And then also raises the question of, like, what about Titanfall? What about, like, Below?
Yeah.
Like, there are all these games.
Yeah, I think, and I hope you guys understand what's going on here. What they have gotten rid of is the 24-hour check. So you can play games offline. What this has not changed is many games themselves will require you to be online. I do not see how Need for Speed Rivals will work in an offline mode. I do not see how a quality experience or any experience for even a game like Watch Dogs or The Division or Titanfall are going to happen without you going online. That's, I think, where maybe Microsoft got so confused. There will be so many games that have a persistent online quality to it that 24-hour check was kind of a side effect, something that would be almost go unnoticed by the player. We are about to see game design change so significantly. It is both in a creative direction, but in a business direction as well. Because when you have the sense of persistence to these worlds, that is yet again another disincentive to want to return the game, because there's a sense that it's always changing, always growing, and there's something there waiting for you. So I think, you know, the idea that like something massive has been championed by the removal of the DRM, I think it's a philosophical championing. But I think a practical material effect for most of you guys in the games you're going to be interested in playing, I think you're going to realize you're going to need an online connection far greater than once every 24 hours.
Well, that's smart. They get to shift the blame to the games almost in a way.
Yeah. Oh, no. Well, just like they kind of tried to shift the blame for blocking used game sales to all the publishers. So,
do you want to bring in Aaron Englund real quick?
Oh, yeah. Hold on. I'm looking for you.
There he is.
Hey, how's it going? I want to start by saying I feel very sympathetic toward your audio guy for E3.
Oh, yeah.
I work in production, and God, I know how terrible working audio in that kind of environment is. So.
Well, it's also, I mean, the mics we have are really good.
Yeah, no, we were able to hear you.
You guys heard compared to what I was hearing, and that's why I came across like a crazy person yelling at someone 3 inches from me, because we couldn't hear each other even though the mics were picking up the sound so well.
Yeah, your mic was doing great. It was just, I was like cringing, it's like, oh, I hope the audio guy knows he's doing his job.
Yeah, and he does. So I'll also pass on his props. But so, what are your thoughts both on E3 or on today's kind of tomfoolery and silliness?
Well, my thought is mainly that the biggest issue that Microsoft was having was with their PR more than actually what the DRM was and everything, because that stuff did not bother me necessarily as much as it bothered everyone else. It seems everybody was just collectively talking about this. Like, my issues with the Xbox were specifically the price point and the fact that Kinect has to be involved, because an Xbox is not going in my living room. It's going to be in my bedroom here with me because I'm in college, I'm in a small space, and I'm going to be up close to a screen. It's not practical for what I want to do with it. So that was more my issue with the Xbox than it really was with those issues.
Here's where I see some... The thing about the Kinect, I was actually quite impressed with what the camera could do. And I actually do get the kind of unnerving feeling that there's a camera looking at you all the time. I don't think anything that nefarious was planned. At the same time, I think there's an innate human response. You know, what I do for a living is not what normal people do for a living, which is living in front of a camera. But the idea and thinking I do kind of agree with having the Kinect come with the Xbox One is that tells every developer it's available. So if we want to have the opportunity of a game that actually gets me excited about Kinect or the voice commands or motion control, the developers out there are doing that. What we're looking at in this generation is it's a Kinect game or it's a game. And that if there was to be the blending, you won't be able to design it if you only think that there's a 30% install base for this thing that enhances what that gameplay experience is. So a lot of what I see, and that's where so much of the bad, crappy mess came from, is that there's stuff in this box that probably is not going to have an immediate application. But they just want to make sure it's there, so somewhere down the line, someone can take advantage of it. I don't know why they didn't say it, just like I did.
Right. No, and I've even made that excuse saying they are thinking 5-6 years down the line when internet infrastructure hopefully gets better with like fiber optics and other things coming to it. Obviously, they can do new things with Kinect, and I'm worried about how quality of games are going to go now that, like, if you're playing offline, you won't get as good quality because you're not using the cloud as you would if you were.
Oh no! What I actually think is going to happen is you won't be able to play the game. Like, the game may just require that online connection, because a lot of people might have been developing for assuming that this was what the original policies meant it was going to be. I don't know, but I think that, you know, I'm very interested in what the actual ramifications of today's decision is going to be.
There's a interesting, Roberto Guedes in our YouTube chat points out, there's a thread on NeoGAF right now apparently that says Microsoft won't confirm the DRM changes are permanent. I think it's in like in a Polygon story or a VG247 story where the quote is, Witten could not give any reassurance that Microsoft will not change its policies in the future. So do you think that that's like a thing that could actually happen? Is that maybe a couple years down the line when every game's effectively online anyway, they might reinstate some of these policies?
Okay, this goes back to my Sessler something about the narrative, is that we have now decided that Microsoft is so odious in its role that nothing they say can be exactly what it is.
Right.
I had already felt that Sony might also be moving in that direction. I think if these decisions for both Sony and Microsoft are implemented further down the line, they would not be implemented where a massive number of people who are already enjoying the console would be negatively affected. This would have to mean that so many games are being bought digitally rather than physically that it doesn't, like, you've already seen it shift. I think, so look, they're completely within their rights. That's going to probably be in the end user license agreement, as it is with a lot of other electronic stuff out there. I think the idea that they're once again saying something, but they're tackling behind their backs, I'm under the impression from things I've heard that Microsoft was very worried, very scared about the certain situation they had found themselves in, and I think they need to now realize things have been so bad for them that even when they present good news, there's a ton of skepticism if that can actually be taken at face value. It's an interesting situation they find themselves in.
It's like the roles have been reversed between Sony and Microsoft now, press-wise.
Yeah.
So, I just wanted to ask, you know, we've been talking about Sony and Microsoft, and you never posted a video. I wanted to know how you felt about Nintendo.
Okay, so I did not go to the Nintendo event they had that morning. There's some other games that we were going to be, to be able to cover earlier, and yeah. So, but we did have Max and Tara go. I was aware of the stuff that was revealed. I do not agree with the assessment that they're playing it safe. I think that, even with all the negative things I've said about Nintendo, I think that's a little dogpiling. That right now they need games out, and to help stimulate sales of the Wii U, they need those games that remind people what is so unique and so special about Nintendo. My feeling is all those games they showed, majority of them should have already been out.
Yeah.
We're going to see a lot of them throughout the year, but now that you have so much mind share from Sony and from Microsoft, where people might be like, hold on, I can either buy that game for Nintendo, hold on to my money for the launch of these consoles and get games for them. They needed those games out now to make the Wii U feel far more essential than it does right now. I have nothing wrong with, I have no issue with any of those games. It's just they once again like, oops. We're waiting for them to be quality, which is great. They need to recognize it takes them a long time to get to a quality product, and they should have planned for that with the launch.
Yeah, I got all excited when they announced Mega Man, and I was like, oh, it's so awesome, Smash Bros. And then it was like 2014. They didn't even give a month. Like,
I know. I mean, that's the thing is that I still think there's some degree of bluff right here. So, all right.
Should we try to get in a new group real quick before we?
Yeah, let's see if we can do that. A new group, it will be a little bit shorter. I can feel my voice is starting to fail on me, but we're going to push this through a little bit after 5 p.m. Pacific. So, guys, great having you here. Thank you so much. Let's bring in a new group.
Awesome. In the meantime, I've got another question from the chat. Let's see here. Billy Burke 39 wants to know: is there hope now for a $399 Xbox One SKU that has no Kinect attached?
I doubt that one. Like I said, to my earlier point, I think the Kinect is actually kind of important. I think it's essential to what their business plan is. I think developers need to know that it's available. I think we will see a $399 or even a $299 SKU with subsidization. So it's either a contract for Xbox Live or potentially even a contract with your cable provider, because that is another thing that works with it. That could drive the initial buy-in price down. I'm confused as to why they didn't bring that up. They're already showing that business model with the Xbox 360. I think that is something we're going to be hearing about in the future. But once again, shame on them for not getting it out earlier, because that would have been you always want to demonstrate with the lowest price possible, and they did it with the highest one, and it's still left me scratching my head.
Cool. Do you want to just, since we only have a few minutes left, should we just bring everyone in at once?
Yes, let's bring them all in.
Awesome. This is going to be fun. We've got Ramon, Peter, Kenneth, Jason, yeah, bunch of people.
All right, let's see who has their mics muted. Everyone say hello at the same time.
Hello.
And one guy said hello.
Well, I guess Jason gets to talk first then.
You win, Jason. Hey, Jason, so what do you think about E3 and today's nonsense?
I thought E3 was great. Titanfall really took the cake for me. I think
I love that game.
The mobility options and the way that sort of evolves the first-person shooter, they blow my mind every time I look at it.
I think it's very important that people take note that obviously not all of Respawn are former Infinity Ward. A lot are. But here's this group that created the military shooter, which is the most defining thing of this generation. And what do they decide to do when they go to the next gen? They're doing something that's a lot more fantastical.
Yeah.
I suddenly realized how much I don't play multiplayer, and a lot of it is I just don't find the environments compelling that we're playing it. And giant robots that I can both fight from the ground and get into, that starts to hit my sweet spot.
I mean, they pick you up right from between their legs, and they put you right inside. It's really cool. It adds this great verticality, this interesting combat situations that really just don't exist in current multiplayer space.
And think about the interesting challenges for level design that it causes, that you have to have human-sized players and you have to have the mech, just in terms of the space you have to do, but places that are interesting for both types of players.
Yeah,
I mean, it's also, I think, hopefully we see more of this with multiplayer, where when you have two sides, you don't have really clear equities. That, but you find a way to keep it balanced enough that doesn't completely tip things in everybody's favor.
Just more sort of asymmetric stuff.
Yeah, definitely.
Asymmetric means like you're playing multiplayer but not at the same time. I mean, this is definitely you're playing at the same time in the demonstration I saw.
Now, I didn't want the Titanfall thing to take away from that question that was brought up about the $399 SKU, because actually this news today makes me wonder whether or not the rumors of the subsidized model for the Xbox 360s with the cable companies is actually in some sort of fall-through state where it's not going to go through. I wonder...
Well, the cable companies, I think that's fair, because Microsoft can't control them. They control Xbox Live. So why they can't at least drop them by $100, if not more, for a subscription to Xbox Live Gold? The only reason I can say maybe that can't be happening is that Xbox Live Gold is free in the box. And that's
really might be the case. Yeah.
And then that price makes more sense. I mean, if you have to pay for Xbox Live and there is no subsidized model and they're selling it $100 more than the MSRP of the PlayStation 4, that's ridiculous. That is a horrible situation they're in. I think even with the stupidity they've demonstrated how they handled this, they're not that ridiculous. So, all right. Well, let's see. Some other people out there. Hey, Peter.
There's Peter.
Hey, what's on your mind? Tell me it's like something completely not game related.
I don't know. I mean, I'm a veteran and I'm actually a Submariner too, so that one comment really.
Really?
It felt like a.
I didn't have the time, but I wanted to reach out and see if there's anyone who's actually been in that circumstance. How many games? I mean, I would imagine you guys will play a lot of games when you're not having to actually do stuff.
Well, that guy must have been on a boomer, ballistic missile sub. I was on a fast attack, and I was on a relatively large amount of workload because of the position I had, but I still was able to read a duffel bag full of books, including all the Robert Jordan, the first 10 of the Robert Jordan books.
Nice for you.
During the deployment, and I probably read them twice.
I mean,
there was time there. So in a boomer, they have even more time to that degree. And they have a better berthing situation, so they could manage that. Like in the 5-man berthing, there'd be people who put down carpeting in their little 5-man area and have like an Xbox or something set up.
I mean, that would just strike me as I've met many guys in who served or are serving, and that video games really are a respite from what is not, conditions of living that, most average people, have a lot more luxuries in, and that's that one thing to do. I just felt it was just absolutely horrible PR that they didn't already have a workaround for the men and women that are serving this country. I mean, it's just like, I don't know. Yeah, that one really, kind of struck me immediately. I'm glad that has been resolved with what's happened today. Hey, let's get to Kenneth really quick. Kenneth is muted.
Uh-oh. Oh, no.
Uh-oh. All right, Jason, back to you, or anybody else, or if you want to pull somebody in there.
Sure, yeah, let's pull in Alexander.
Hey, Alexander.
Hey, how's it going?
Hey.
Oh.
So,
Hey, there's 2 Alexanders, apparently.
So, Alexander Vincent, we'll start with you.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm the guy from a while ago that you couldn't see before with the long hair and stuff from Canmore, Canada.
How you look.
Yeah.
It's really creepy.
There's one question I've always wanted to ask. Why is there a picture of a horse, an upside-down horse, behind you guys at Rev 3?
I have absolutely no idea.
I think it's a
bird on his head. I think this was here from the previous owners.
Yeah, that's right.
They left it on the wall.
I'm actually talking about is it Adam, I think? Oh no, Matt. Yeah. Why is there even in the drunk, or what's it, where you guys take the casual Friday with the upside down horses? There's always there, right behind you.
Nick, is there?
Wait.
Nick.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Why?
This is Annie Gauss's horse calendar. The calendar. Well, we're gonna get Scott Bromley from Tech.
Oh.
Can you flip that calendar over, please? They want to see the horses.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, we're all distraught over the death of Jake.
Yeah, there's your answer though.
Okay.
Horses.
Now, I'm actually gonna want to bring it back to the Xbox One because I've been actually really big fan of what they.
This handsome.
Sorry, I'll mute Scott if he's in.
That's a horse.
Yeah, but we have horses.
So Alexander, it sounds like you were a fan of the Xbox One from the beginning.
Well, yeah. I mean, like I play Xbox 360 a lot, and I'm a big fan of Steam and what Steam's doing. I mean, like I have a bazillion games, and I've seen a lot of sales on Xbox 360 even now, kind of bringing up that kind of sales that Steam does. And I thought, with Xbox 360, it was kind of bringing that into the 360 there, or into the Xbox One. And like I personally wasn't minding the whole DRM. A lot of people didn't even mind that after the initial Microsoft announcement until Sony really dug in that knife. Like I was actually really excited for what Xbox was doing with the cloud and all their types of all the stuff that
I
that
don't believe that they're precluding
implemented.
the cloud. I don't think the decision today is going to suddenly just end whatever that promise.
Yeah, that is true. I mean, like personally, I had a lot of hope. Especially because Insomniac Games, they said like it was only available on Xbox One, or they could only do it on Xbox One. Like, I'm not sure how true to word that is. They might have been bought out.
But with the power of the people who have brought me to the stage.
Double trouble.
Yeah.
It's they went out and they got some exclusives. I mean, it makes sense.
Yeah, and a lot of the exclusives spoke to me. To be completely like. A lot of people were saying it's all about the games. What are the games going to do? And after the Xbox 360, or after the Microsoft announcement, they said, hey, look at all these games. I'm actually super excited for them. Not just being Xbox, or not just being Halo, but then like right after the Sony announcement, they just piled on Xbox saying X-Zone and such like that. I mean, like I was looking forward to it. And I hope that the system isn't brought down with what they just said now. I know I'm going to be doing all my digital downloads, that type of thing, so I can instantly switch, that type of thing. And believe me, I'm not paid off by Microsoft.
I'm still planning on getting everything and just download it. I'm tired of the mess. I also like the benefit. This is more of a professional thing. The idea that I can pull up that game from my account from any Xbox, because there's my office, there's my home, there's various places. I see a lot of advantages there. I'd actually wonder if because of the changes, they may accelerate people's acceptance of just buying a downloaded game versus a disc game, because now there's a more stark difference between what you get between the two.
I feel like that's actually better in the old model. The old way they were doing it was actually much more strongly into the digital market. Because it was
and I think it was kind of strong-arming it in a way that people were kind of like, hey, hold on, I still want to have a choice here. But it's my thing about the press conference, because they showed a lot of games. I get that.
Oh yeah, a lot of games.
They showed off videos and no voices to it either.
I know. I felt it a little defensive. I felt that they were in a panic mode and like to show as many games as we can, and it wasn't curated. It wasn't. The games weren't demonstrated in a way, with a couple of exceptions. The key one being Titanfall. They weren't demonstrated in a way to make me appreciate them. And to your point, it could only be done with the power of the Xbox One. I didn't get that. I mean, they didn't show enough of the game or something new or something different. I mean, they did it somewhat with Dead Rising, but then, and this is true for like EA and everyone, they kept on going, oh, it's 60 frames a second. I'm like, well, you're getting a gold star for showing up to work? I mean, that's ridiculous. That, Dead Rising, look, there's more area and more zombies. I would fucking hope so. I'm buying a brand new console. I mean, it's one of those. Nobody was really able to identify something that felt new, felt revolutionary, and felt essential to these consoles. And I think that's true for both Microsoft and for Sony. Microsoft showed a lot of games, but I just felt like they're like, hold on, no, we have another one too. Please don't leave us. Please don't leave us. That they were already panicked about what had happened with the initial reveal.
I mean, they would show games and not even introduce them. Sorry, I didn't mean to.
I completely agree with you. And Microsoft did a terrible job on telling you why you needed or why you wanted these games. I had been digging through and looking for everything I liked throughout E3, that type of thing. I got super psyched over a couple games only because of what I heard afterwards. And through people and developers saying, "Hey, this is what's what," and I only got excited, through that and the potential of it. But I can see how people that aren't into Microsoft in the first place, especially because of what they're doing or what they were doing, they're going to have a hard time finding the good through, what seems so much of the rough. You know what I mean?
Yeah, the press the press conference really just seemed like they were just playing an hour-long set of trailers, because they would play trailers without introducing them. They wouldn't really say much about them. Like when we saw Sunset Overdrive, it was right before another trailer, I believe, and then we immediately went into another one.
I felt it was kind of a weird hot mess, and it was. We actually saw less games at Sony's, but Sony, when they presented something, they understood the novelty of it. Mm-hmm. Even though I think afterwards I was like, but I still didn't get excited about a particular game. And it wasn't until I did my interview for The Division, and when I did my interview for Need for Speed Rivals and for The Crew and for some of those games, I was like, oh, this is really cool. I really like where this stuff is going with the multiplayer. And for someone like me, where I don't like to decide to play multiplayer, I kind of like the idea it's just imposed on me. I'm like, screw it, I'll go along for the ride. I think there's a lot of fun to be had there.
The Dark Souls way.
Yeah, let's make sure we hear from the other Alex too.
Yes, I think so.
So, hey everyone. So I was thinking the whole thing that got announced today, and the fact that they took away family sharing, I think that's kind of ridiculous, because DRM or no DRM, use games or no use games, the family sharing thing is an amazing idea, because if you just have
don't you realize that the family sharing probably required the DRM because it wasn't unique to one Xbox?
It probably did, but regardless, even if it didn't, why can't they still have it? Because doesn't PlayStation have something really similar to that?
If somebody out there wants to correct me, Nick, you can check the chat. I'm not aware that Sony is looking at a group ownership of a license on multiple consoles.
I haven't heard them say that now.
Yeah, I'm not aware of that. I do believe that one of especially the family sharing thing. Which, why didn't they trumpet that? Because I know it was like, that sounds kind of cool. I think to some extent that was going to mandate the DRM to validate that there wasn't something hinky going on.
Exactly.
I think the way that they canceled it too was really weird, because that statement, like the tone of the statement, was like, all right, we're gonna get rid of the DRM, but we're gonna
take our toys to go home too.
It was like being like, okay, you can go to your prom, but you got to be home by 11 and no drinking. Like it felt like we were being scolded a little bit.
And before everything that they announced today, I'm really surprised that they weren't jumping all over that. I mean, obviously we know their marketing team isn't the best, but
no, Alex, I agree with you 100%.
Yeah,
that one day when they put out the statement of like that legally written horrible thing about all what their policies were. Here's this one thing about the family plan, and it's like, why haven't we heard about this?
I know.
And it just seems like that's an easy way for people to swallow some of the other nonsense. I still don't know what the full extent of that family plan was, because if there was multiplayer available from one license for all the people inside the family, that was a pretty good deal. So I think there was also supposed to be the sense of digital lending, which I think will not be able to work anymore either.
Yeah, and supposedly how that was supposed to work was, so say if it was you and me, Adam, if you wanted to play a game with me that I owned, you could, but you can only have one other person do that. But multiplayer would be included in that. And I'm just like, that's amazing.
Well, the funny thing was, I think there was a business agenda to it, which was the idea that if you get a taste of the game I'm playing, that you might go out and buy that game. And I think that there are demonstrations that actually you're not giving it away for free. If you could actually cause more sales by giving someone like sort of a time period that they can play with it. But once again, they couldn't get that message out. They really couldn't. Hey Nick, want to bring in one more guy?
Yeah, let's bring in. Got to make sure we got someone new in here. I'm gonna go with D because I don't remember anyone named D before.
Oh, D.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we got you.
Awesome, Adam. How's it going?
Doing all right. You?
I'm doing great. I'm excited about the news today.
Yeah. Well, I'm just excited. I wasn't. I like to do nothing the week after E3 because my body is completely just wrecked and everything. Oh no, there's news. Time to go do things. Anyway, I'm glad for you. So, what's on your mind?
I got to be honest. I saw this coming a mile away. Like after they announced it back in May, like a group of us, my friends and I, were saying, "There's no way Microsoft can't look at the reactions from fans and not retract." And sure enough, here we are after E3.
No,
they're pulling back.
I'm still shocked they did it as quickly as they did because they're Microsoft. But I felt it was inevitable too. That there was no way they could sustain this level of abuse all the way into November.
Yeah, because I actually pre-ordered both the PS4 and the Xbox One because I'm a gamer. I don't choose size. I just want to play games.
I'm with you. I mean, I have to do it because if I don't have one, I'm only doing half my job. So.
Yeah, but I mean, there are still some things that I'm still concerned about, like the Kinect issues. But other than that,
the camera always being on, or
yeah,
you can turn it off though.
Yeah.
Is that what they said now?
Yeah, it looks like you can't turn it off. It's one of those where, like, I think they see it from the vantage point of, would it be cool if it was just always in the sleep mode and you voice activated to turn it on, and the rest of the world, it's a freaking camera staring at me all the time.
Yeah, it seems like there were a lot
I'm not comfortable there.
There was a bunch of stuff that they were like, wouldn't it be cool if? And then they sort of failed to explain the upside, so everyone saw the downside and was like, no, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Always on DRM is crazy. 24
And
seconds
it's
are crazy.
also, it's they need to understand they are a large corporation that is far more powerful than any one individual. And so when they do these things that are new and different, people have a reason to treat it with suspicion, even if it doesn't have ill intent. It's like, they've done things in the past, their behavior. I do just caution people to also, Sony has similar intents. And that I worry sometimes that people are like, hey, it comes with knives that you stab me with? That's great, it's Sony. I just, as I said in the something, there should be a degree of caution in both camps, and that if you just buy into the narrative and the rallying point, you're going to spend $500 to flip the bird to Microsoft. I don't know if you're necessarily doing yourself a favor, because neither is perfect, and both are going to really piss people off one way or another. We just probably haven't even found out all the new ways it's going to happen.
Right, and likewise, we want competition, right? We don't want a monopoly because that's horrible for the industry.
No,
both systems are having that DRM patent. I believe Sony recently put that out before holiday season last year, I believe, and everybody was up in arms about that, which led to many people to believe that they were going to have similar DRM policies. And it was just Microsoft's fault for going first.
Yeah, and doing a bad job of articulating it.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, guys, I am fading inside of my throat, and I do apologize for backing out at this time. But forgive me. I am going to the Screw Attack convention in Dallas this weekend. I will be on stage many, many times, and I need to do some preservation of these vocal cords that went through something of a rude awakening last week at E3. We are going to do this. Oh, yes.
Is there one last thing I can quick in is one last thing. One game that you wish you saw at E3 that you didn't, that wasn't The Last Guardian?
Or Beyond Good and Evil 2. Yeah, whatever it is that Naughty Dog is working on. I mean, we know they have two teams, and there's a second team with Amy Hennig. I really had wanted to see that, and I think that would have really... I would have been far more positive about Sony's press conference had I seen that kind of game. Something that was really a shock and a surprise.
I personally wanted to see not Dragon Age, whatever it was, but Jade Empire 2. Would have been done. Done.
Yeah. I still question if that would even exist. I think the sales of the first Jade Empire may have damned the fate of Jade Empire 2. All right, guys. So once again, I will be in Dallas this weekend at the Screw Attack convention. If you're there, come by, say hi, watch me talk, bring me water. And anyhow, we are going to do Address the Sess in 2 weeks. We may do it at a very different time because that will be July 3rd. And I don't think anyone would want to spend July 3rd in the afternoon doing this, and I would love to embrace some of our European and people who live in other time zones that this isn't amenable to. So we'll have some announcements for that to see if we're going to do something new and exciting that might happen earlier in the day on the 3rd of July. Thank you all very, very much. Please go check out the videos we have from E3. We killed ourselves. just watch a couple of them, and you'll be like, oh, that was wonderful. Anyhow, thanks, guys. Take care.
Thanks, Adam. Take care.
Thank you.
See ya.